You might be asking, how can you make a then versus now about Rick and Morty? It's only been around for like 3 seasons. Well, it's been a wild multi-dimensional ride and a lot has changed. Hi, I'm Adrian with Channel Frederator, and today we're comparing Rick and Morty's first season to its 3rd season. This is then versus now Rick and Morty. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell icon to become part of the notification squad. The focus of the show. While Rick and Morty used to focus on, well, Rick and Morty, the show's lens has widened to capture the entire Smith family. Most of the early episodes could be summarized as Rick and Morty go on an adventure, but newer seasons go on a different route, with episodes focusing on premises like the show explores how the Smith children are affected by their parents' divorce. Season 3 also brought us our first Rick and Jerry episode, and our first episode in which Beth and Rick have an adventure of their own. Father-daughter bonding over finding a man who's been committing bestiality and incest in a world Rick created. Still, bonding. Basically, we've seen a shift from episodes that just star Rick and Morty to a format that supports an ensemble cast that drives unique plots. Story, plot, and setting. Speaking of plots, we can't skip over the divorce. While Beth and Jerry's unsatisfactory marriage served as a butt of many jokes back in the day, the joke's over. Beth and Jerry get divorced in Season 3's first episode. This major change gave rise to many sentimental themes that came up in Season 3. The divorce plot is actually inspired in part by Harmon's real-life experience with parents that experimented with separation. His words, not ours. Harmon says, everybody's got a story about one of their parents acting differently in a separated context, like how awkward their dad looked in a subtly different outfit. Jerry's newsboy cap. Then you've got the alternate timelines. Sure, early Rick and Morty explores these alternate timelines whimsical ways, but now these alternate timelines and Ricks and Mortys have become deeply ingrained in the show. Remember your surprise when we first learned that there were alternate Ricks and Mortys? Or when we discovered that all the Ricks come together to form the Council of Ricks? Well, now an episode that features an established society of alternate Ricks and Mortys, Ricklantis mix-up, seems totally natural. We've come a long way from the early days. And don't forget that Rick has introduced the idea of a series arc for the first time. Sure, it may have started as a joke involving the now famous McDonald's Szechuan sauce, but it's still a significant departure from the format used in the pilot and early seasons of the show. And don't worry, we'll dive into the Szechuan sauce later. Tone. Rick always had penchant for dark humor. For example, his cute catchphrase, wubba lubba dub dub, actually means, I'm in great pain, please help me. But in Season 3, the show's really leaning into its dark tone. However, the creators may not agree that the show's gotten darker over time. When questioned by Time, Dan Harmon said it was kind of hard to say if the show is darker now than it once was, but we beg to differ. In Season 3's first episode, Rick Shank Redemption, Rick reveals that all of his supposed love for his grandkids was just a grand scheme to get rid of Jerry. And it works. This is the episode that resulted in Jerry's divorce. That divorce not only marked a big change in the plot, but it also signaled a change in tone. Things are about to get real for the Smiths. They have to face real-life problems and their consequences. While in the early seasons, Rick is pretty adept at avoiding or running from the consequences, they catch up to him and the Smiths in Season 3. And sometimes the consequences are just plain sad. We're thinking of the peek you get into Jerry's moldy, cockroach-filled bachelor pad. And let's not forget the themes of racial violence, oppressed factory drones, and mind-emptying nostalgia in Tales of the Citadel. New writers. On the topic of writers, before Season 3, Rick and Morty didn't have any female writers. Now the show's writing staff is nearly half female, showrunners aside, with 4 women in its writers' room. Jessica Gao, Jane Becker, Erica Rosby, and Sarah Carbiner. This isn't Gao's first writing gig at Adult Swim. She also wrote for Robot Chicken, where she was, again, the show's first female writer. Overall, Adult Swim doesn't have any shows with women showrunners, which Gao says is a bummer. Humor. If Rick and Morty had a soul instead of a big black hole, it would be made of jokes. Rick and Morty's distinctive humor is what draws many fans to the series. Believe it or not, the creators have amped up the humor a lot since the pilot. Someone over at Den & Geek even calculated the number of jokes per minute in Rick and Morty. In Seasons 1 and 2, the average jokes per minute, or JPM if you will, clocked in at 5.4 and 5.96 respectively, less than Angie Tribeca's 6.17 JPM in Season 1, but more than Veep's average in Season 4. Now in Season 3, Rick and Morty has reached a new record, with a total of 9.16 JPM. That's a lot of laughing. Rick and Morty's jokes have always been ridiculous. In the first season, the humor was dark for sure, but it was more surreal. Early season jokes were steeped in the strange planets they visited, and Rick's classic off-color humor. But now that the show is in its 3rd season, the writers are including more and more self-aware jokes. For instance, the writers played a lot with self-referential jokes in the Pickle Rick episode as a result of the widespread fan anticipation. They also psyched us out with the Ricklantis mix-up episode, in which we thought we'd see Rick and Morty travel to the lost city of Atlantis, but instead got Tales from the Citadel. And they deprived us of Interdimensional Cable 3. Rude Interdimensional Cable. You know, the lack of Interdimensional Cable in Season 3 hit us hard enough that it deserves its own discussion. Interdimensional Cable has been a trope that devoted fans have learned to anticipate with every fiber of their being. Season 3's version of the episode, which was typically improvised by Roiland and Harmon, was largely scripted. We think this took away some of Interdimensional Cable's manic charm. One of the inspirations behind Interdimensional Cable came from Roiland's love of short-form weird stuff. These episodes let him showcase all the hilarious hilarious ideas writers came up with during their process that otherwise wouldn't have made it out of the writer's room. Morty's Mind Blowers, Season 3's stand-in for Interdimensional Cable, is different because it features ideas that writers pitched to the audiences on Twitter before they decided what made the cut. Plus, they're all about Rick and Morty instead of wacky space creatures with eye holes or turbulent juice. Celebrity cameos. Celebrity cameos crept up the A-list in Rick and Morty's third season, getting all the way to Susan Sarandon, who plays the family and poop-eating therapist in Pickle Rick. Nowadays, Rick and Morty attracts plenty of big-name celebrities like Christian Slater, Nathan Fillion, Joel McHale, and Jillian Jacobs. The latter two also starred in Harmon's Community. Earlier seasons counted fewer celebs in the credits, most of whom were specifically comic actors. These include Jordan Peele, Keegan-Michael Key, and David Cross. Animation and style. Fans on Reddit have noted the difference in animation and style from when the show debuted versus now. We may have been paying too much attention to the fart jokes to notice, but when you look at stills from Season 1 versus Season 3, you can see a clear difference. The former uses thicker lines and brighter colors. The latter has more nuanced shading and looks slightly less cartoony. Just take a look at Rick's drool then versus now. You'll see it there for sure. Doc and Marty. Before there was Rick and Morty, there was the real animated adventures of Doc and Marty. Sound familiar? If the show's obsession with Back to the Future wasn't clear enough already, the pilot features two familiar characters, Bizarro Rick, aka Doc, and creepy wall-eyed Morty, aka Marty. While the real animated adventures of Doc and Marty isn't really a pilot for the show we know and love, it's where Roiland created and fell in love with the characters. But if you compare Doc and Marty to Rick and Morty, you'll notice some very distinctive differences. For one thing, Doc and Marty takes place in a nightmarish MS Paint hellscape. It borrows backgrounds from the Care Bears, and when it's not set in bastardized Care Lot, you can see posters of Smash Mouth in the background. Thankfully, a lot changed between Doc and Marty and the first episode of Season 1, but Roiland's voices for Rick and Morty are very close to what you'll hear in the series. You don't mess with perfection. Show intro sequence. The intro sequence of Rick and Morty changes every season, and thanks to one notable Season 2 episode featuring Mr. Poopy Butthole, sometimes twice per season. Overall, it went from heavily featuring Jerry in Season 1 to not even showing him in Season 3. Here are some notable Jerry moments in the Season 1 intro versus the several non-Jerry scenes in Season 3. In Season 1, you've got Jerry shooting monsters, Jerry helping Robot Morty with his homework, Jerry and family attacking Rick, and Jerry giving birth. Jerry appears again in Season 2's intro, but he's disappeared entirely from Season 3's intro, which instead shows Butthead Morty watching porn, Summer chilling with Hunger Games Summer, Morty's escaping out of school building window, and Rick shopping at the Morty store. Maybe this is because Season 3 is when Jerry moves out, so he's no longer in the picture? Fanbase. Rick and Morty started out as a pretty niche show. It wasn't for everyone. It definitely wasn't for everyone. But by its third season, Rick and Morty was the #1 rated comedy on TV, over primetime series like The Big Bang Theory and Modern Family. Of course, this means the fanbase is now huge compared to earlier seasons. New York Comic Con was crawling with Rick's, Morty's, and Meeseeks this year, and Dan Harmon has to think twice before throwing on a Rick and Morty shirt when he gets dressed in the morning. He says that now he's guaranteed to get comments from fans if he does, making him feel like an egomaniac. And we can't neglect to mention the dark underbelly of Rick and Morty fandom, the trolls. After the writer's room shakeup, trolls docked several of the show's female writers. In response to the toxic fandom, Harmon said, "It's offensive to me that there's some white male fan out there trying to further some creepy agenda by protecting my work. I've made no bones about the fact that I loathe these people. It fucking sucks." Marketing and merch. And with a bigger fan base comes more merch. In early seasons, Rick and Morty didn't have much of a consumer impact. Now it's popular enough to revive a lost sauce that McDonald's used to promote the Disney movie Mulan in 1998. After McDonald's brought back the sauce for one day in early October, the fast food giant saw the demand was so great that they're bringing it back again this winter. Ending credits. In early episodes, the logo for Dan Harmon's production shop, Harmonious Claptrap, which comes at the end of the credits, featured clay figures of him next to a red-haired woman. Harmon and his wife split up between Rick and Morty Season 2 and 3, so now the Harmonious Claptrap logo features a clay figure of Harmon alone, lying on the couch where he and his clay wife used to sit. Characters. All of the characters in Rick and Morty have changed a lot for a show that's only been running 3 seasons. Since we've already looked at some of the big changes, like Jerry and Beth's separation, let's just focus on the Rick we're left with at the end of Season 3. In Rick's own words, we have a character who went from being in control of the Smiths to the lowest status character in his own lame family. Then Rick held sway over Beth because she'd been afraid he'd leave again. He stayed on top of Jerry by belittling him, bossed Morty around, and angled for Summer to seek his approval. For present Rick, all of that power is gone, at least until next season comes out, when I'll surely have a big white Santa Claus beard of my own. Thanks for watching Rick and Morty then versus now, and don't forget to share how you think the series has changed in the comments below. I'm Adrian with Channel Frederator. Don't forget to click that bell icon to become part of the notification squad. We have videos dropping every week, so make sure to subscribe. And remember, Frederator loves you.